blood dripped onto the cold airport floor, spreading into a long red streak. In the crowded terminal of Atlanta International, a man was dragged through the hallway like a criminal. The sound of cameras clicking, people shouting, and shoes striking against tile fused into the harsh rhythm of public humiliation. And in that moment, Dr. Marcus Ellison, the black CEO of one of America's leading cybersecurity corporations, was no longer a diamond VIP passenger, but a disruptive traveler, his hands bound amid a sea of whispering suspicion. Only minutes earlier, he had been seated in 1A, the first-class seat, on a SkyReach Airlines flight to New York, a seat he had booked, paid for, and chosen, meticulously preparing for the most important meeting of his life. But a single polite request from a white man, "Would you mind giving me your seat? I always sit here," had pushed Marcus from the height of power into the depths of disgrace. It all unfolded like a bad dream. Flight attendants crowded in. The captain appeared, his voice cold and sharp like a sentence. "If you don't cooperate, I'll have to call security." Marcus lifted his head, eyes steady as a blade. "I'm simply sitting in the seat I purchased. That's all." That calm, simple answer drove the entire system insane. When 3 security officers entered the cabin, some passengers raised their phones, others turned away, afraid to be involved. No one spoke. Only Marcus's thoughts whispered, "If I stand up now, who will stand up later?" Then came the rough hands, pulling him up. A violent tug, a crash, the metallic sound of an overhead bin slamming against his forehead. A drop of blood fell. The entire cabin fell silent. 10 seconds. That was all it took for a man's dignity to be erased in front of hundreds of eyes. Marcus did not shout. He did not resist. He let them drag him away, his shoulders rigid as steel. But in his mind, a flood of memories surged, the nights his mother mopped hospital floors that smelled of disinfectant, the day his father was handcuffed outside their home for a crime that was never proven, the job interviews, where recruiters' eyes brushed over him as if he had entered the wrong room. He had endured it all, overcome it all, becoming one of the brightest minds in American cybersecurity. Aegis Guard Security, the company he built from a tiny apartment, had become a multi-billion-dollar empire. Yet under the harsh fluorescent lights of that terminal, every title, every degree, every award meant nothing. He was once again the black man being doubted for daring to sit in a place too good for the color of his skin. Outside the glass, Chloe Jenkins, his assistant, pulled out her phone. The screen flooded with breaking headlines. BlackCeo dragged off plane for refusing to give seat to white man. Within 10 minutes, the video had millions of views. She stared at the image of her boss being pulled away, her throat tightening. Oh my God, what are they doing to him? In SkyReach's corporate PR room, a cold voice cut through the chaos. Issue a statement quickly. Say the passenger refused to follow crew instructions. Don't mention race, another replied. But that video is spreading already. People will know. Just deny it. It'll blow over. No one realized that this time it wouldn't. In the holding room, Marcus sat still, the blood on his lip already dry. A security officer awkwardly handed him a tissue. We were just following orders, you understand. Marcus looked straight into the man's eyes, his voice hoarse but steady. I understand. But one day, you'll have to choose between orders and what's right. Outside, his phone buzzed endlessly, hundreds of messages, thousands of notifications, journalists, colleagues, clients, friends. Then came a message from Chloe. You're on every news outlet. Seton A is exploding. Marcus exhaled. He had spent his entire life fighting to be recognized for his ability, not his skin color. Yet now it was this humiliation that thrust him into the light. In a small airport cafe, a middle-aged white man sat watching the viral video, its glow reflected in his cup of black coffee. It was Richard Hale Marcus's long-time advisor. He murmured under his breath, almost to himself. He did the right thing, but they have no idea what they just woke up. That evening, news networks replayed the footage of Marcus being dragged away amid the chaos. But this time, under the video, thousands of comments appeared. Who is he, a CEO? A man who refused to bow. Seat 1A will never just be a seat again. Under the harsh interrogation lights, Marcus lifted his head. His lips were cracked, but his eyes burned, not with hatred, but with unbreakable resolve. He spoke softly, almost like a vow. If they wanted to silence me, they chose the wrong man. The screen faded to black. The narrator's voice echoed. Sometimes justice doesn't begin in a courtroom, but with a single drop of blood on an airport floor. No one is born forged in steel. People are shaped through humiliation, through loss, through the moments they stand up again, from places where no one believed survival was possible. For Marcus Ellison, that forging began in West End Atlanta, where the sound of police sirens blended with cries, echoing through the night. He was born in a small apartment, with mouldy walls, a leaking ceiling, and an old fan that rattled like a warning that everything could collapse at any moment. His father, James Ellison, a steel factory worker, was arrested for a store robbery he was never present at. His mother, Loretta, a hospital janitor, worked 3 jobs to raise her son. By the age of 10, Marcus already knew what it felt like to stand outside a courtroom, watching his mother tremble while holding a photo of his father. The man was sentenced to 12 years in prison. From that day, Marcus made a vow he would never let injustice become something normal. While other kids played ball, Marcus buried himself in the broken computers of a local community center. Rusted circuit boards and missing keys didn't discourage him. Computers don't care who you are or what color your skin is, as long as you understand their language. That was the first lesson technology ever taught him, a world that didn't judge. The skinny boy taught himself programming from old library books, copying every line of code into a notebook. Many nights under the dim light, sweat glistened on his young face as he whispered like reciting a prayer, "If truth equals hidden, then reveal." By 16, he had written his first software, a simple program helping small shops track their inventory on an old Pentium 2 computer whose fan wheezed like a dying breath. But that program earned him a full scholarship to MIT. Cambridge, Massachusetts greeted him with the heaviest snow in 10 years. In the dorms that never slept, students debated algorithms, startups, and the future, while Marcus learned silence, the kind you master when a room goes quiet the moment you enter. They didn't call him genius. They called him the scholarship student, another way of saying, "You're only here because they needed another color in the photo." He didn't react. He smiled faintly, bowed his head, and kept coding. He knew that sometimes the strongest answer is results, not words. 4 years later, Dr. Marcus Ellison graduated with 2 honors degrees in computer science and business administration, both at the top of his class. But the real world wasn't as welcoming as he hoped. 27 interviews, 27 rejections, the same reason repeated again and again, not a good fit for our company culture. He knew what culture meant. It meant, don't be too different. One afternoon after receiving his 27th rejection email, Marcus sat in silence, inside his small Decatur apartment, staring at the faded photo of his father in a wooden frame. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "You'll never find justice if you only look for it in the places others define." The words struck like a spark in the dark. The following week, Marcus withdrew the small inheritance his grandmother had left him, $14,000, and founded Aegis Guard Security in a 30-square-meter rental apartment. He did everything himself, wrote code, ran ads, handled customer service, even printed and stuck his own logo onto laptops. At first, no one believed that a cybersecurity company owned by an unknown black guy could do anything beyond cheap slogans. But opportunity often hides in the dark. During his first year, a major financial corporation was hit by a cyber attack. Industry giants failed to stop the malware. Marcus sent one email: "Give me 12 hours. If I can't fix it, you don't have to pay." They agreed, thinking he was just another dreamer. 10 hours later, Marcus delivered a detailed report, patched every vulnerability, and restored all data. 3 days later, his first contract was signed, worth $2.3 million. Aegis Guard had arrived on the map of American technology. But money doesn't erase prejudice. At conferences, Marcus was asked for directions to the tech support booth instead of being invited to the executive table. Investors often shook hands with his white assistant, first only to look surprised when they realized he was the CEO. He remembered every glance, every question, every forced smile. And it was at one of those high-end networking events that he met Richard Hale, a retired executive who didn't look at him with pity, but with rare recognition. Over their first lunch together, Hale said, "In your position, being good isn't enough. You have to be twice as disciplined, twice as precise, twice as composed. It's not fair, but it's the unwritten law of power." Marcus stayed quiet, then nodded. Hale didn't teach him to bow. He taught him how to stand firm. 10 years later, Aegis Guard had become a leading security firm, its headquarters rising on Peachtree Avenue with offices across 12 countries. People called Marcus many names: the tech pioneer, the guardian of data, a symbol of a new generation of black leadership. But he didn't care much for titles. What mattered to him was that every black child in West End could see they too could become a CEO, not just a rapper or an athlete. On a late winter afternoon, from the 40th floor of his glass headquarters, Marcus looked down at the city. Streets buzzed with lifelights, pulsing like blood through Atlanta's veins. He smiled, thinking his past was finally behind him. But 1 week later, Chloe walked into his office with a folder in hand and said, "Eurosecure has confirmed the meeting in New York. They want to sign in person. I've booked your flight on Skyreach Airlines. Seat 1A, first class." Marcus nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. He had no idea that the number 1A, which seemed like just a seat assignment, was the exact coordinate of his destiny. That night he returned home late. In the window's reflection under the streetlight glow, Marcus saw himself, not the successful CEO, but the little boy, standing in a damp apartment years ago, whispering a promise through trembling lips. "One day I'll make them see justice." That day was near. He just didn't know it would begin from a single seat in the sky. That morning, the sky over Atlanta was an impossible blue. Sunlight filtered through the glass walls of Aegis Guard's high-rise headquarters, casting golden streaks across the wooden table where Dr. Marcus Ellison was organizing his files for the most important investor meeting of the year. Everything was prepared with meticulous precision: the presentation, the security data, the expansion plan for Europe with their partner, Eurosecure Systems. He knew that just one more successful meeting would secure Aegis Guard's position as the world's leading cybersecurity firm. "Your flight's confirmed, Mr. Ellison," came the bright, proud voice of Chloe Jenkins from the doorway. "First class Skyreach Airlines, seat 1A. This time you'll finally have a chance to rest on your way to New York." Marcus smiled the quiet smile of a man who had fought his way through difficult beginnings. "Good. I want to get there early, have time to fine-tune the presentation." Chloe closed her laptop, watching him thoughtfully. "Do you realize what that means? Diamond class, the very first seat, the highest level of service. From those economy flights years ago to this," Marcus gave a faint smile, his eyes thoughtful. "Yes. Every first-class flight is a reminder that I didn't get here by luck." At 5 a.m, he left his penthouse apartment, the door clicking softly behind him. Atlanta's streets were still veiled in thin mist. Inside the car, he reviewed the meeting files again, eyes scanning mind, memorizing heart, steady yet alert. When the SUV pulled up to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, neon lights reflected on the familiar words, "Skyreach Airlines, first class check-in." He straightened his tie and walked toward the counter. The check-in agent, a young blonde woman in a crisp uniform, looked up and hesitated. "Excuse me, sir. The economy line is over there." Marcus replied calmly, his voice soft but cutting. "I'm a Diamond member, first class Skyreach, flight 407 seat, 1A. She clicked her mouse, her face flushing as she forced a smile. "Oh, my apologies, Dr. Ellison. I didn't realize. Here's your boarding pass. The Diamond Lounge is near Gate B12. Have a pleasant flight." The apology came without eye contact. He was used to it. The Diamond Lounge was warm, elegant, and quiet. But as Marcus entered, the air shifted slightly. A few glances flickered his way. Surprise, curiosity, then quickly turned aside. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit leaned toward his companion eyes, still fixed on Marcus. He heard it, though they thought no one could. "Not many people like him show up here, huh?" Marcus didn't react. He chose a seat by the window, opened his laptop and sank into his data. A flight attendant approached her. Name tag gleamed, Emily Rogers. Her tone was gentle professional. "Good morning, Mr. Ellison. May I bring you something to drink? Sparkling water with a slice of lemon, please." Emily nodded, but as she turned away, her eyes swept over his watch. His shoes then lingered on his laptop screen, where the Aegis Guard logo glowed softly. A CEO, really, her look seemed to ask without words. When she returned with the drink, she smiled. "I'll be serving on your flight today, Dr. Ellison." "It's an honor to have you aboard, Skyreach." Marcus returned the smile politely. He didn't yet know that this same woman would later witness and become part of an explosion that would shake everything. 9 o'clock. Boarding. The announcement came through the speakers. "We now invite our Diamond passengers and active military personnel to board." Marcus stood, picked up his leather briefcase and documents, and walked toward the gate. The boarding agent hesitated. "Excuse me, sir. Are you sure you're in this boarding group?" Marcus said. Nothing, simply held up his Diamond card and boarding pass. She scanned it, eyes widening slightly when the screen displayed Seat 1, a Diamond status. "Oh yes, of course. Please go ahead." That familiar feeling returned the sting of being questioned for belonging where he rightfully was. The first-class cabin gleamed in the morning sun. Silver-grey leather seats, polished walnut tables, a faint citrus scent from the diffusers. Marcus stowed his briefcase and settled into seat 1A. This wasn't just the first seat. It was a symbol, a place reserved for the chosen. And today he was there. Emily Rogers appeared again, smiling. "Welcome aboard Skyreach. Flight 407. Champagne or coffee, Sir Champagne." Just one glass. The thin glass chilled his fingers, the pale gold liquid catching the light. He took a sip and tasted the quiet triumph of a decade of effort from a damp room with an old computer to the first-class cabin of a leading airline. One by one, passengers boarded, all white men in crisp suits and polished shoes. Emily greeted them by name. "Good morning, Mr. Daniels. Welcome back, Mr. Harper." No one asked for their tickets. Marcus looked back down at his notes, trying to focus. But then a tall man appeared in the aisle, broad shoulders, flushed face, his wrinkled blazer barely hiding the glint of a luxury watch. Gregory Stanton. He stopped directly in front of Marcus, didn't look at him, and spoke to Emily instead. "Is there some mistake here? I always sit in 1A. Marcus looked up. "I'm afraid not today, sir." Gregory frowned, ignored him, and continued to Emily. "I've flown this route for 15 years. I'm claustrophobic. I need the window seat." Emily hesitated. "The system reassigned your seat, Mr. Stanton. You're in 2C today." Gregory's voice hardened. "Unacceptable. I'm sure this gentleman won't mind switching right." All eyes in the cabin turned to Marcus. He set down his papers, speaking slowly and clearly. "I selected this seat and paid for it in full. I need to work. I'm sorry, but I'll be keeping my seat." A tense silence stretched. Then Emily forced a polite smile, trying to smooth things over. "Doctor, Ellison, perhaps you could move to 2C. It would be a great favor to one of our long-time VIPs. Marcus met her eyes, his voice calm but resolute. "I don't give up my seat based on who's familiar with the airline. I sit here because I have the same right as every other passenger." From the row behind, Gregory exhaled sharply, his glare simmering. The tension spread through the cabin like a tightened wire, and Marcus simply sat still, his eyes calm as still water before a storm. In the cockpit, Captain Scott Miller received a report from Emily Small issue in seat 1A. Passenger refuses to change seats for a long-term VIP. Scott sighed. He was used to handling these delicate situations. "I'll talk to him. Let's not delay departure." He straightened his uniform and stepped into the first-class cabin, walking directly to Marcus. The gaze of authority met the calm of principle. The arrogance of privilege faced the quiet defiance of dignity. The plane had not yet taken off, but the confrontation had begun, and no one yet knew that a single decision refusing to leave seat 1A would soon shake the entire American aviation industry. From that moment, the destiny of Marcus Ellison began. The air in the first-class cabin thickened with tension. The sound of Captain Scott Miller's footsteps echoed steadily, each one striking the metal floor like a hammer. Every passenger watched him approach, holding their breath. The faint citrus scent that once filled the cabin now mingled with the metallic tang of unease. Scott stopped in front of seat 1A, where Dr. Marcus Ellison sat upright, his hands resting calmly on his knees. The man in the light grey suit showed no defiance, only the cold composure of someone long accustomed to injustice. Sir Scott began, his voice carrying the steady weight of authority. "I was informed there's been a small issue with your seat." Marcus looked up, his tone even. "There's no issue, Captain. I'm sitting exactly where I'm supposed to be, seat 1A first class, booked a week ago." Scott tilted his head, a thin, practiced smile flickering across his lips like a blade. "I understand. But the passenger in 2C is one of our long-time clients. He has a medical condition that requires him to sit near the window. I'd like to ask for your cooperation for everyone's comfort." From behind, Gregory Stanton interjected his voice, rough and entitled. "I have claustrophobia. They know that. I always sit in 1A. Marcus turned slightly, his gaze unwavering. "I have my own reasons as well, Mr. Stanton. I chose this seat because I need the space to work. I paid for it. It's confirmed, and I'm not moving." The air froze solid. Flight attendant Emily Rogers stood between the two men, her face tense, fingers tightening around her tablet. A part of her knew Marcus was right, but another part feared the silent weight of hierarchy. Scott lowered his voice, the tone now sharp as command. "Doctor, Ellison, I have full authority over this flight. When I give an instruction, it isn't a request." Marcus replied, his voice calm, but edged with steel. "I fully respect your authority regarding flight safety, Captain. But seat assignments have nothing to do with safety. I will not vacate the seat I was assigned." Each word struck the air like nails into steel. Emily whispered urgently through clenched teeth. "Captain, the passengers are watching." But Scott ignored her. His stare locked on Marcus with the arrogance of a man unaccustomed to being told no. A moment of silence passed, heavy as stone, before Scott's voice cut through the cabin, cold as a blade. "Very well. You've made yourself a non-compliant passenger. Emily, call security." The cabin erupted in a collective gasp. Some passengers craned their necks, others raised their phones. Marcus stayed still. He didn't shout or struggle, only exhaled deeply. This is no longer about a seat, he thought. This is about the line between bowing and standing tall. Across the aisle, a young woman whispered into her phone camera, "Oh my God, he's not even doing anything. They're really calling security, just because he wouldn't switch seats." The cabin door opened, and 3 airport security officers entered the light, glinting off their metal badges. The lead officer stepped forward, his tone rigid. "So the captain has requested that you leave the aircraft for failing to comply with crew instructions." Marcus met his eyes. "I understand. But may I ask which instruction, the one that says I must give up my paid seat to another passenger?" The officer looked away. "Please cooperate, sir. Let's not make this more difficult." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'm cooperating. But note in your report I'm leaving, not because I'm wrong, but because you're forcing me to." He rose, picked up his briefcase, his movements calm, deliberate, dignified. Emily stepped forward, whispering, "Ellison, I'm so sorry." Marcus met her gaze, his voice soft as air, yet enough to make her shiver. "It's not you. It's this system." When the officer's hand touched his arm, a chill shot down Marcus's spine. A memory flashed his father in handcuffs, the blinding police lights, his mother's choked sobs. He spoke quickly, clearly. "There's no need to touch me. I'm leaving willingly." But the officer's grip tightened, pushing him forward. The sudden shove made him stumble, his forehead striking the overhead bin. His lip split. The taste of blood spread across his tongue, salty metallic. The cabin gasped in horror. A man shouted, "Good Lord, he didn't do anything." The clicking of phone cameras filled the air. Emily covered her mouth, her face pale. Scott Miller turned away, lips pressed tight. Marcus was dragged down the aisle, drops of blood, marking the blue carpet, bright red under the cabin lights. Someone whispered, "That's the blood of justice, and they're trying to wipe it away." In the airport holding room, Marcus sat silently, his white shirt stained with dark brown streaks of dried blood. A young officer leaned down, handing him a paper towel without meeting his eyes. "This will all be over soon, sir." Marcus smiled faintly. "No, this is just beginning. His phone buzzed non-stop notifications, messages, calls. He opened it. 3 videos had gone viral, over 2 million views in less than an hour. The headline of the first read, "BlackCeo dragged from first-class seat to make room for white passenger." The comments poured in like a storm. Someone has to be held accountable. Is this America? In 2025. #Seat1A. We need to talk about this. On the other side of town, Chloe Jenkins nearly burst into tears when she received his text. "I'm fine. Don't be afraid." But she knew he wasn't fine. She had seen the video, seen his eyes, as they pushed him away. Not angry, but the eyes of a man long tested, this time determined not to stay silent. Meanwhile, at SkyReach Airlines' headquarters in Dallas, an internal report was sent with urgency. Incident on Flight 407, passenger removed for failure to comply with crew instructions. CEO Rebecca Collins glanced at it, her tone cold. "Issue a statement immediately. Say that passenger safety is our top priority." Her assistant hesitated. "But the video is everywhere. He's the CEO of Aegis Guard, a public figure." Rebecca's eyes sharpened, then shut it down faster. All responses go through PR. No one talks to the press. No one in that room knew the real storm had already begun, and it would sweep away far more than a few first-class seats. That night, when Marcus walked out of the interrogation room, the Atlanta sky was pouring rain. He stood motionless before the glass door's rain, and blood mingling on his shirt. In the reflection of his phone screen, he saw himself being dragged down the aisle under flashing lights. Marcus drew a slow, steady breath. Today, he whispered, they pulled the wrong man from that seat. Because he wasn't just a passenger. He was the one who had awakened a sleeping wave of justice. The rain that night seemed endless. Droplets struck the hotel window, merging with the cold blue glow of a phone screen. Dr. Marcus Ellison sat alone, his lip still bleeding, the once white shirt now stiff with brown stains. On the screen, the world was exploding. The 58-second video, showing him being dragged from Seat 1A, was spreading across every social platform. Each frame cut deep, the hands of security gripping his arm, the horrified faces of passengers, someone shouting, "Stop!" and his face calm, almost unnervingly. So like a man who understood that some battles can no longer be avoided. The hashtag Seat1A appeared for the first time at 7 in the evening. By midnight, it was #1 across every major network. In Chloe Jenkins's apartment, phones rang non-stop. She answered reporters between tears. He's not a disruptive passenger. He was just sitting in the seat he paid for. She repeated that line 100 times, but it felt like no one truly heard. Social media didn't want truth. It wanted outrage. It wanted villains. And SkyReach had quickly become one. The airline's official statement appeared on Twitter. The passenger was asked to leave the aircraft for failing to follow crew instructions. SkyReach always prioritizes safety. 3 sentences, cold, corporate, and emotionless. They poured gasoline on an open fire. The comments flared instantly. Safety or discrimination? No one here saw danger, only a black man being humiliated. Hashtag boycott SkyReach. We don't fly with prejudice. In Attorney Andre Lewis's office, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. "I'm guessing you're not sleeping," Andre said, when Marcus finally answered. "I don't plan to. You've seen the clip I have. There's nothing in it. I haven't lived before. Except now, millions of people are seeing it too." Andre's voice dropped. "They made a huge mistake. And they're going to pay for it." Marcus exhaled quietly. "Andre, I don't want this to become a vendetta. I want justice, not revenge. Then we'll do it your way, with evidence, with law, and with truth. The next morning, CNN opened its broadcast with a blazing red headline, BlackCeo forcibly removed from first-class seat, Skyreach Airlines faces national crisis. The anchor's voice was urgent. The video has surpassed 10 million views. Civil rights organizations are calling for an investigation. Skyreach's stock has dropped 12% overnight. At Skyreach headquarters in Dallas, an emergency meeting stretched through dawn. CEO Rebecca Collins slammed her hand on the table. Why is that video still up? The communications director stammered, "Ma'am, it's been re-uploaded thousands of times. We can't delete it all. Then rewrite the statement. Say we're investigating. Suspend the crew. If we suspend them, we're admitting fault." Rebecca's jaw tightened. Better to lose face than lose the company. Across the Atlantic, inside Eurosecure Systems headquarters, the board convened in urgency. Our partner, the man dragged off that plane, is now a political flashpoint, said CEO Dirk van Hovind. Should we postpone the deal with Aegis Guard? After a long pause, he nodded. For now, we wait until the storm passes. But that storm was spreading across the globe. In his Atlanta apartment, Marcus received a video call from his longtime mentor, Richard Hale. The older man's face appeared faintly blue in the screen's glow. "Marcus, I just got something from an inside source. Ever heard of passenger comfort profiles? A friend in Skyreach's IT department told me it's a secret database labels passengers as pleasant or problematic. It even has unlisted tags for white customers who've complained about sitting next to black passengers." Marcus froze. "You're saying they've been running a hidden bias system? Not officially, but yes, it's real." Marcus leaned back, fury rising. Not explosive, but deep, steady like fire, burning beneath ice. Then they didn't just drag me out of my seat. They dragged the truth into the light. That evening, Andre and the legal team gathered at Marcus's apartment. The desk became a war room, documents, reports, printed screenshots, witness lists. Chloe, eyes swollen from crying, set her laptop down. "Bad news. They're painting you as uncooperative, as aggressive. They're claiming you raised your voice at the crew." Andre smirked. "Good. Every passenger has video. We have the truth." Marcus stood, his voice calm but unwavering. "We're not just suing them. We're going after the entire industry. I want to build an independent watchdog organization, one where no one can hide prejudice behind the word procedure." Chloe blinked. "You want to start a movement, not just a movement," Marcus said slowly. "A revolution of respect." Andre smiled. "Then let's begin. I'll contact the Civil Rights Office. You get some rest." Marcus shook his head. "I can't. Tonight I saw my father in the mirror. At dawn, major news outlets splashed Marcus's image across their screens. His face calm, his lip bloodied, the caption scrolling beneath. BlackCeo dragged from first-class seat. Skyreach faces media tsunami. At 5 a.m, Marcus posted a single tweet that became a symbol. "I wasn't removed from that flight because I was disruptive. I was removed because I refused to bow. Hashtag Seat 1A. Within minutes, it went viral. Celebrities, politicians, and journalists echoed the hashtag across platforms. Across America, people began sharing their own stories of discrimination on planes. The quiet story of one man had become the voice of a community. That evening in their strategy meeting, Andre looked at Marcus. "We're winning the media battle, but the real fight hasn't begun. Are you ready for phase 2? Marcus met his gaze, his eyes gleaming under the dim light. "I've been ready my entire life." He rose and walked to the window. Outside, Atlanta was still wet from the rain. Reflected in the glass was the face of a man who had once been dragged down, now preparing to pull an entire system into the light. "They called me a disruptive passenger," he said, quietly. "But history will call me something else, the man who refused to leave his seat." The sky over Atlanta blazed with sunlight, yet to Dr. Marcus Ellison it felt grayer than ever. The hashtags, Seat 1. A justice for Marcus and boycott Skyreach still flooded every corner of social media. The whole nation was talking about him, some calling him a hero of justice, others mocking him as a CEO playing the victim card. But Marcus didn't care about opinions. He cared only about one thing, the truth. Inside the penthouse, the atmosphere resembled an emergency command center. Screens across the room displayed charts, news updates, videos, and hundreds of incoming emails every hour. Chloe Jenkins sat before her laptop, her voice tired but steady. Marcus IV video just surfaced. A student from the row behind recorded everything up close. It clearly shows you never resisted. Marcus stepped closer, eyes fixed on the screen. In the clip, he was calm, saying, "I'm just sitting in the seat I paid for." Moments later, security grabbed his arm and blood spilled across his white collar. The room fell silent. Attorney Andre Lewis slammed the table. "There's no doubt now. This is the smoking gun. We're suing them for systemic discrimination and unlawful use of force." Marcus folded his arms, his eyes firm. "Andre, I don't want to sue just to win. I want them to reveal what they've been hiding. I want to know exactly what this passenger comfort profile system really is." Hours later, Richard Hale called his tone urgent. "Marcus, I've got something. My contact inside Skyreach's IT department sent me a confidential document." "What kind of document?" Marcus asked. "An internal operations guide. It states, passengers sensitive to comfort should be seated according to their individual profiles, which include behavioral, economic, and personal feedback factors." Marcus gripped the phone tightly. Behavioral and economic factors. What does personal feedback mean? Richard hesitated before answering softly. In their internal language, it means passengers who previously expressed discomfort, sitting near Black or Middle Eastern individuals. The room froze. Chloe covered her mouth in disbelief, her eyes wide. Andre cursed under his breath. Marcus stood still for a moment, then spoke quietly, each word deliberate. "So they built an entire system that makes discrimination look legitimate." Richard's voice was grave. "It's unofficial, but it's real, and the man who demanded your seat, Gregory Stanton, is one of them." Marcus's hand clenched into a fist. "They call it comfort. I call it a velvet-wrapped crime." That afternoon, the media storm raged on. Skyreach Airlines held a press conference. CIO Rebecca Collins appeared before dozens of microphones, her face pale and tired. "We deeply regret the unfortunate incident on Flight 407, she said. "Skyreach is conducting an internal investigation and has suspended the crew involved. However, I want to emphasize, passenger safety remains our top priority." A reporter raised his hand. "There are reports of a passenger comfort profile system that categorizes customers by race." "Is that true?" Rebecca frowned slightly. "I've never heard of such a system. That's just speculation." Her answer was like gasoline on a flame. Within hours, the hashtag passenger comfort profiles became a global trend. Former Skyreach employees began speaking out. One post read, "I was once told to move a Black passenger to another seat because a VIP felt uncomfortable." That's not speculation. Within a single day, nearly 50 anonymous testimonies flooded the internet. Late that night, Andre entered Marcus's study with a thick stack of documents. We've found 37 previous complaints against Skyreach, all buried quietly. It's time to reopen them. Marcus nodded. Do it. But I want more than a lawsuit. I want to set a new standard for fairness in air travel. Chloe turned to him, eyes filled with a mix of fear and admiration. You know they'll fight back. They'll dig into your past, twist the truth, even invent stories to destroy your reputation. Marcus's voice was steady, his tone deep and resolute. If they need to smear me to protect a lie that only proves I'm right. The next morning, headlines broke Aegis Guard Security officially filed a federal lawsuit against Skyreach Airlines, accusing them of systemic discrimination, civil rights violations, and unlawful use of force. Skyreach's stock instantly plummeted 18%. Dozens of corporate partners cancelled contracts. The company's PR department descended into chaos. In the break room, a young employee whispered to a colleague, "I heard they're planning to blame Captain Scott Miller." "It won't work," the other replied. "The video shows he gave the order." In her office, Rebecca Collins shouted, "I want every passenger record locked down." No more leaks, but it was already too late. An internal email had been leaked, revealing that Rebecca herself had approved the policy to prioritize reassigning passengers based on comfort level. As Skyreach scrambled to contain the disaster, a new movement spread across the nation, Fly with Dignity. Thousands of passengers shared their own stories of injustice in the skies. An Asian American woman wrote, "I was once asked to move because the man next to me said I made him uncomfortable. Now I understand why." A pilot posting anonymously confessed, "We were trained to handle sensitive passengers delicately. I regret ever following those instructions." Marcus read each story, his throat tightening. He wasn't alone anymore. On Saturday night, as the city lights shimmered through the glass, Marcus called Andre. "They'll offer a settlement." "How much do you think?" Andre chuckled dryly. 5 million, maybe 10. But they'll want your silence." Marcus looked out the window where the night sky glittered like a band of silver stars. Silence is what kept people suffering for decades. I won't sell justice for any price. He rose and faced the city, where thousands of lights glimmered across the horizon. If they think they can bury the truth under money, then this time the truth will be the one to bury them. Somewhere in the endless stream of online comments, a message appeared from an anonymous account addressed to Marcus. "I'm a flight attendant from that flight. I have something you need to see. But we must meet in person." Marcus stared at the message, his eyes sharpening. The fight was no longer confined to the internet. The truth was finding its way to the surface, and he would be the one to open the door. Rain poured through the night. Beneath the warm yellow light spilling from a cafe window near downtown Atlanta, Dr. Marcus Ellison waited. He had just received an anonymous message from someone claiming to be a flight attendant on the flight that changed everything. The message said to meet at 9 p.m. with strict instructions: no security, no reporters, no cameras. The wall clock read 9:10 when the door opened. A small woman entered, soaked from the rain, her hands trembling as she pulled down her hood. Marcus recognized her instantly, those eyes he had seen them in the first-class cabin. Emily Rogers. She sat across from him, her face pale, and drawn, her fingers interlaced, as if holding back fear. "I don't know where to start," she whispered, voice trembling. "I've watched the video over and over, and I haven't slept since that day." Marcus looked at her, not with anger, but with quiet sadness. You don't need to apologize for what the system forced you to do. Emily shook her head. No, I need to. I saw what happened and I stayed silent. But you were right. The truth has to come out. She reached into a bag and pulled out a small external drive. This contained SkyReach's internal data, training emails, internal reports, and the files for what they call the passenger comfort profiles. Marcus stared at the tiny device, feeling as though he were holding a bomb. 2 days later, in the temporary office of the legal team attorney, Andre Lewis plugged the drive into a secure server. The monitor glowed to life, revealing dozens of folders labeled PCP Database, Priority Seatings, Internal Review, Sensitive Passengers. Chloe held her breath as Andre opened one file. Thousands of lines of data filled the screen: customer names, profile codes, secret notes, long-time VIP avoid seating near black passengers, quiet cabin request, avoid Middle Eastern passengers, negative feedback after sitting next to a black woman. No one spoke. Marcus stood behind them, his knuckles turning white. My God, Chloe whispered. This isn't a mistake. It's policy. Andre turned, fury burning in his eyes. With this evidence, we can bring down the entire company. Marcus looked at the screen, his voice steady, each word heavy with resolve. No, not just one company, the entire industry. News of the SkyReach data leak struck like lightning. The New York Herald front page headline blazed, shocking revelation, SkyReach, airlines secretly categorized passengers by race and comfort level. 3 hours later, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced a federal investigation. Other airlines began to wobble as the leaked data revealed that the comfort profile system wasn't exclusive to SkyReach. It had been shared with multiple carriers under software licensing contracts. This is systemic discrimination, a CNN commentator declared. And one black CEO, dragged from seat 1A, has sparked the largest reckoning in aviation since the 1970s. In the glow of office lights and scattered papers, Marcus stepped out onto the balcony, drawing in a deep breath of cool, damp air. The streetlights reflected off his face, sharp and contemplative. He thought of his father, a man once arrested for standing near the wrong person at the wrong time. Now I'm standing in the right place at the right time, Dad, he whispered to himself. 3 days later, SkyReach struck back. Their PR team launched a new media campaign titled Ellison Manipulated the Incident. Anonymous accounts and fake blogs spread stories portraying him as a schemer seeking publicity ahead of an international deal. Andre slammed his fist on the desk. Dirty tactics. They're paying bots to spread lies. Marcus only smiled faintly. When people fear the truth, their first move is to make the truth-teller look suspicious. But the attack backfired. Another former employee, Deshaun Alvarez, who had been fired 2 years earlier, stepped forward publicly. I was terminated for refusing to move a black family out of first class. They called it non-compliance with the sensitive passenger policy. I still have the training documents and I'm ready to testify. The story exploded across every news channel. The public no longer saw Marcus as a victim, but as the man who ignited a movement for justice. In Washington, D.C., hundreds gathered outside the Department of Transportation, holding signs that read, "Equality can't fly halfway." The Fly with Dignity movement became a national campaign. More than 10 major airlines were forced to issue statements promising internal policy reviews. On the giant digital screen at Times Square, Marcus's face appeared alongside the words, "He refused to move." So did the world. That night, Marcus received an unexpected call. A woman's voice came through calm, powerful commanding. "Dr. Ellison, this is Congresswoman Dana Harris, Chair of the House Transportation Committee. We are opening a congressional hearing on discrimination in the airline industry. I want you to testify as our key witness." Marcus froze for a moment. "You want me to? I want you to tell everything before Congress. Your evidence could help draft a new law protecting equality in air travel." Her tone was firm. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a call to history. Marcus looked out the window. Beyond the glass, the city lights shimmered like stars. He thought of Chloe Andre, Richard Emily, all those who had risked everything so the truth could be seen, and the thousands of passengers who had stayed silent out of fear. He closed his eyes and said softly but firmly, "I'll be there. Not just to tell my story, but all of ours." When he hung up, Andre stepped out from the hallway. "Who was that?" Marcus turned a faint smile crossing his face in the light. "A summons. From Congress." Andre whistled low. "So they've just invited the man kicked out of seat 1A to sit in the highest chair of the hearing room. I'll say this, Marcus, you're not just flying anymore. You're taking the whole country with you." Marcus gazed out the window, his eyes shining with the reflection of the city below. "Not me, Andre. Us. The people who were forced out of their seats are about to teach the world how to sit where they truly belong." Washington, D.C. gleamed beneath the autumn morning light. Crimson maple leaves blanketed the marble steps leading up to the U.S. Capitol. Amid the crowd of reporters and flashing cameras, Dr. Marcus Ellison climbed the ivory stairs. His charcoal grey suit fit perfectly. His dark blue tie caught the sunlight, and with every step he took, the camera shutters fired like drums of war. "Dr. Ellison, how does it feel to sit in another seat today, this time as a witness?" a reporter shouted. Marcus paused briefly, his gaze sharp as a blade. "I just hope no one asks me to give up this one," he said. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but beneath it lay a sense of gravity and expectation. From the man once dragged from his seat on an airplane, he had become the central witness in the largest congressional hearing in the history of American aviation. Inside hearing room 2167, every seat was filled. Lawmakers, the press, airline executives, and civil rights leaders faced each other from opposite sides. The air was heavy tense, electric like the moment before a storm. The gavel struck 3 times. The chairwoman, Congresswoman Dana Harris, a strong-eyed woman of deep brown skin, spoke firmly. "This hearing will come to order. Our purpose today is to determine whether commercial airlines in the United States are maintaining systemic discriminatory practices that violate the civil rights of American citizens." Marcus's name was called first. He rose, placed his hand on the Bible, took the oath, and sat at the witness table. The microphone light blinked on. The room fell silent. His voice was low but unwavering. "Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for allowing me to speak. I'm not here to tell my story alone. I'm here to tell the story of thousands of passengers who were treated the way I was because they didn't look like the standard VIP." A slide appeared on the screen behind him, the image of Marcus being dragged away, his eyes steady beneath the grip of 2 officers. He continued, "That day I broke no rule. I was asked to give up my seat so that a white passenger could take it. And when I asked, 'Why me?' no one answered. But their system already had the answer, a database that categorized passengers by so-called comfort level, which in truth measured the comfort with skin color." Murmurs filled the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Marcus presented the evidence, internal emails, the passenger comfort profiles, training materials, and the leaked files provided by Emily Rogers. The second slide appeared a chart showing black passengers were 22 times more likely to be reassigned than white passengers. "If this isn't discrimination," Marcus asked, pausing, his eyes sweeping the room, "then how do we define justice?" At the far end of the table, Skyreach Airlines CEO Rebecca Collins sat pale-faced, her eyes downcast. She had once believed a few press statements could quiet the storm, but now the storm was unfolding right in front of her. Next, Emily Rogers took the stand. Her hands trembled as she held the microphone, but her voice was clear. "I've served Skyreach for 27 years. In training, we were taught that the comfort of VIP customers came first. But those VIPs were almost always white. If one of them appeared uncomfortable, we understood, without being told, to move the person sitting next to them, usually a passenger of color. No written order, just a look. A congressman asked, 'Were you ever directly told to move black passengers?' 'No,' Emily said. They didn't have to say it. They used different words. Maintain cabin harmony. Ensure premium experience.' But everyone knew what it meant." She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening. "I watched them drag Dr. Ellison away, and I will never forget his eyes, the eyes of a man who refused to stay silent." Applause erupted in the back of the chamber before the gavel struck to restore order. But in that instant, history had shifted. Then came Deshaun Alvarez, a former flight attendant fired 2 years earlier. He read from his disciplinary email, where it stated he was terminated for failing to cooperate when handling a VIP dissatisfied with a black passenger seated nearby. "I lost my job because I refused to move a black family with 2 small children. Now I realize, if I had stayed silent like everyone else, Dr. Ellison's story would have been just one of hundreds buried in silence." A conservative lawmaker interjected, "Perhaps the airlines are simply prioritizing loyal customers. That's their right as a business." Marcus responded immediately, his tone firm and cutting. "Business is never an excuse to organize human beings by race. When money determines who deserves respect, justice is already for sale." The room went utterly silent. After the testimony, Chairwoman Harris concluded the morning session, her voice both warm and commanding. "What we heard today is not an isolated incident, but a system of bias, institutionalized and perpetuated, and we will not look away any longer." The gavel came down. The hearing recessed. Marcus stepped from the witness chair into the marble hallway, surrounded instantly by microphones and cameras. "Dr. Ellison, what do you hope will come from today's hearing?" a reporter asked. Marcus met the cameras with steady eyes. "I'm not looking for an apology. I'm looking for change written into law, not spoken in promises." That afternoon in the same room, Skyreach's representatives faced the committee. Rebecca Collins read from a pre-written statement, her voice trembling. "Skyreach does not engage in or endorse discriminatory practices. The leaked materials were misinterpreted or manipulated. But when Chairwoman Harris displayed an email, signed electronically by Rebecca herself, authorizing the prioritization of seating arrangements to prevent discomfort among valued passengers, the chamber erupted. Rebecca had nothing left to say. As the hearing concluded, Dana Harris rose, her voice ringing like a bell through the silent hall. "From this day forward, Congress will begin drafting the Equitable Transportation Act, ensuring that every citizen, regardless of color, has the right to equal respect in the skies." Cameras flashed in a blinding storm. Marcus lifted his gaze to the towering white columns of the Capitol. He knew this moment would be written into history. That evening, back at his hotel, he stood by the window overlooking the glowing city. Down below, the crowd still chanted in the streets. "Seat 1A belongs to everyone," Marcus smiled softly. He knew the road ahead would be long, but for the first time, he felt the sky truly open, not just for him, but for everyone who had ever been told to leave their seat. 2 weeks after the congressional hearing, a shocking announcement shook the nation. Rebecca Collins, CEO of Skyreach Airlines, officially resigned under mounting pressure from the public and the company's board of directors. The airline's stock plummeted. To record lows, dozens of contracts were cancelled, and the Department of Transportation launched a full-scale federal audit. But amid the chaos, something no one expected happened. Richard Hale, Marcus Ellison's longtime mentor and advisor, was nominated as the new Chief Executive Officer of Skyreach. At the press conference he spoke firmly and clearly, "We will not run from the truth. We will rebuild." Standing beside him was Marcus Ellison, not as an adversary, but as the newly appointed chairman of the Independent Ethics and Oversight Council, granted full access to company data and the authority to release public reports directly. The reform blueprint was unveiled that very day, the complete elimination of the passenger comfort profile system, the creation of the Washington Protocol, named after Marcus, a transparent seating process that excludes race, religion, or social status from any consideration, and the establishment of the Equal Passenger Council under the supervision of civil rights organizations. The country was stunned. From a scandal, Skyreach had transformed into a symbol of reform. Other airlines, fearing they would be left behind, began to follow suit. Within 3 months, more than 10 major U.S. carriers publicly adopted a new zero-discrimination policy. In a televised interview, Marcus spoke slowly, his eyes reflecting the light of the sky above. "I never sought revenge. I only wanted every person to be treated with dignity in the very place where they were once diminished." Behind the cameras, Chloe stood watching, her eyes glistening with tears. The man once dragged from a first-class seat now sat at the table, shaping the future of the entire aviation industry. The storm of Seat 1A was no longer a movement. It had become a global standard, a world where courage turned into policy, and justice was no longer spoken in words, but written into law. 6 months later, at Atlanta International Airport, the morning was filled with sunlight. On the departure board, Skyreach Flight 407 from Atlanta to New York glowed bright. Dr. Marcus Ellison passed through security, the scanner flashing over his diamond card. No suspicious stares this time, only a warm smile of welcome. At the boarding gate, a large sign stood proudly. "Every passenger deserves respect. The Washington Protocol." The lead flight attendant approached with a kind smile. "Welcome back, Dr. Ellison. Your seat is 1A. Marcus replied, his voice calm and warm, "And this time I believe it belongs to everyone." On the plane, passengers of all colors sat side by side, chatting comfortably. A little African-American girl pointed at the cabin screen, displaying the slogan, "Fly with Dignity," and asked her mother, "Mom, who is Marcus Ellison?" The mother smiled softly and said, "He's the man who made it possible for us to fly without fear." As the plane lifted off, golden sunlight streamed through the window, reflecting across Marcus's face. At that altitude, all differences seemed small. He closed his eyes gently as the captain's voice came over the intercom. "On behalf of Skyreach Airlines, we would like to thank Dr. Ellison, the man who reminded us that Dignity has no class. The entire cabin broke into applause. Marcus smiled, his heart light as the wind. There were no longer seats 1A or 2C, only people equal under the same sky. From the perspective of a leadership ethics expert, the story of Dr. Marcus Ellison is not merely a journey against discrimination on a single flight, but a testament to the enduring power of human dignity, a force that cannot be bought, cannot be given, but can only be preserved through courage. He did not triumph through power or anger, but through steadfast conviction and the belief that justice begins when we refuse to stay silent in the face of wrong. A seat is no longer a symbol of privilege, but a reminder that every place deserves the same respect. If you believe that respect knows no boundaries, that courage can transform an entire system, then press like to help spread this message, and subscribe to join us in sharing more stories where people triumph through dignity, not power. Leave a comment below with a phrase that reflects your belief. Hold your dignity.